You are live.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. We are going to begin this special meeting of the Evergreen Properties Project Review Team. I want to thank everyone for participating via Zoom. We welcome everyone's participation. You are all leaders in our community and hope to have a very productive meeting. I'm sorry we're not able to meet in person, but given the present circumstances, we will conduct this meeting via Zoom. I'd ask if everyone could be patient with some of the technology, and please state your name as you prepare to make a statement or a comment, just so we can keep track of everything. We will ask the staff to call the roll, please.
Yes. John Cahill. Jim Croom. Peter Dewan.
Present.
Mike Kruger.
Here.
Carrie Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Doug Jester.
Here.
David Lederber.
Here.
Reverend Monroe.
Here.
Carissa Weir-Wheeler.
Present.
Dr. Wilbur.
Present.
Mayor Byer.
Here.
And there's your committee.
Thank you. Actually, I received a note from Jack Cahill, who's trying to sign in, but he can't, he doesn't have the meeting ID, so perhaps staff could forward that on to him.
Yep, I'll resend that.
Thank you. So we will go ahead. We have an agenda that's been presented by staff. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented and ask for a second.
So move.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, the agenda passes unanimously. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, as we have done for all DDA meetings, we offer an opportunity for the public to weigh in and participate. It also is helpful that we have a time limit with regard to the public comment section. So with regard to any electronic meetings of the Evergreen Project team, in order to maintain the order of the online public meeting, I move that we adopt a rule pursuant to MCL 15.263 parens 1, limiting public comment at this meeting to 2 minutes per individual, and ask for a second.
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Lederber. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we will move on. We have no written communications. And at this point, I would ask the city staff to open up for public comment, and we will take callers in the queue in the order in which they have called in.
Okay, we have 2 attendees. Attendees, you will now be unmuted. If you would like to speak, please state your name for the record, if you could, and you have 2 minutes to speak. The first number that I'm going to unmute ends in 374. 374, you are now able to speak.
Hi, Heather. It's Jim Croom. You have me down as an attendee, so I need to be switched to a panelist.
And we can move you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Jim.
We'll move you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Okay, the next caller is Councilmember Meadows. Councilmember Meadows, did you want to state anything?
No, I'm just an observer.
All right, thank you.
Welcome. Are there any other members of the public that wish to address the committee?
That was it.
Okay. We will now move on and offer the developer, Mr. McGraw, John McGraw, to provide an overview of their response to the RFP that was submitted. And welcome, John.
Thank you, Peter. Heather, can I share my screen?
Heather, you're muted.
Yes, you should be able to share your screen.
I'm still trying to figure this stuff out too. All right, can you
Yes.
guys see
Mhm.
presentation here?
Yes.
All right, so this is kind of, I was thinking it was going to be a little different than today. So this is a little last minute for presentation wise, but in all honesty, I've been living and breathing this project for the past year and a half, even prior to the RFP. So some of you have seen this presentation before, and I apologize for some of the redundancy, but some of it will be new. And I wanted to give just a brief introduction to River Caddis to those who aren't familiar with what we have done, who we are, and kind of how we got here today. So River Caddis, obviously, my father, who's on this, Kevin McGraw, started our company in 2008 and brought me on in 2012. And since we've done projects in 7 different states, ranging from mixed use to office to industrial to retail to a multitude of different projects in housing, whether it be student or market rate. And we're currently working on some other in mixed income. So we've done developments from all ranges of sectors in real estate. And we've done some really great projects here in Michigan, as well as the other 6 other states. So in each one of these projects, we have financed or self-financed all of our projects. And my goal the last couple of years is to go out and go find new projects that we could work on, new niches in different cities and states to try these new developments. And with speaking with different municipalities, I came back to Kevin. I said, listen, we're having all these conversations back home, and we see these huge needs. We see these gaps that just have not been solved. Why are we not doing this at home? So the past year and a half, moving from Boise or Texas or Florida or Ohio to come back home and start having more conversations with stakeholders back home about what are we missing? What are the needs of the city that River Caddis can use and utilize its resources nationally to help provide back home? How do we take those things that we've learned the past decade and really present them in a way to our economy to help stimulate it and provide growth and a place for or an ecosystem for people to thrive on the sharing of ideas and community. So through that, we came up with this idea from, hundreds of conversations over the past year and a half of taking these little nuggets of information from each conversation that we have and putting them in this bowl, kind of shaking it up, dumping it on the table and saying, okay, how do these things fit together? And then how do we compare these to different areas across the nation where it has worked and where it has stimulated the economy, where it has enhanced the community in ways that provide growth and just a better place to live, a place that retains talent, a place that people don't want to move away from after college. They want to stay and start a family. and we have that fertile landscape. We have that community here. We're just missing a couple of things. And it might not even be that we're missing them. It's that we just haven't put them together. And we haven't necessarily asked the hard questions of why aren't we working together? Why are we not collaborating as a community from each and every stakeholder, from the city to the university to cities to the west, the north, the south, and the east? Why are we not having these conversations by utilizing our strengths, getting in the room, talking about the hard questions, and focusing more on we instead of I, and that together we're stronger. And I've been living this in every conversation, and it has drummed up this enthusiasm and this passion in speaking about this, that it's why I say I'm living and breathing it. I see a path, and I see this path not because I have these grandiose and idealistic views, but each and every one of you and people around you and your neighbors and our neighbors have given me this idea. This isn't necessarily, I mean, I've given it a name, but the idea has come from stakeholders, not just on this phone call, but people we all know, people we all talk to. And that's what's so exciting about this, is it's not mine, it's ours. And I'm not trying to make it mine. I'm trying to provide a home, a stage, a platform, and a framework for us to say, holy cow, we are stronger together than we are by ourselves. And River Caddis knows how to build the box. We know how to build the home that can provide the ideas that can be shared and then grown. And hopefully that provides that stage for other developers as well to come in and go, do you see what's going on in East Lansing? Do you see what they're doing? Utilizing all of their resources, utilizing their community and their collaboration to provide this idea sharing network. And that's where this comes from. This doesn't come from taking an RFP and backing into an idea and just saying, hey, my name's John and I can read your RFP and I can answer it with all the things that you want. I've been working on this, and the city can attest to this, well before this RFP was even out, even presented. It just didn't have a name. So that is my my long-winded historical background, and this presentation is going to shed light on a couple of different things. If you have gone through and you have seen the RFP, you'll see most of these things, and then the final slide will provide a brief fly through of the building. Now, I want to preface all of this design, conceptual drawings and programming as something that this is our first step. You know, this is something that we did starting in November and then discovered and explored to February, but have not at least presented any changes since, because we're trying to get all the feedback that we can from the review committee and from the stakeholders not on the review committee to help River Caddis with the collaborative event that we're trying to achieve to provide this asset that people can come in and utilize for the next 50 to 100 years. So CITADEL, or Central Innovation, Technology, and Arts District of East Lansing. We have this trademarked. You'll see the brand is a honeycomb or a hexagon, one of, depending on how you look at it, one of strength, or if it's a honeycomb representing bees and the teamwork of us working together, of a hive to create something as a team, as a community. It's what we're called to. So this whole design, in terms of the brand, in terms of the name, it all correlates to community-driven development. So as you'll see through here, we have brought on Newman Smith for architecture, who is also the architect of record for the MSU FCU building. We did that on purpose. We have a very good relationship with Newman Smith. They've done our Midland Dow building that we built downtown Midland, as well as Trowbridge. But we did this to pull together not just MSU FCU, but hopefully in terms to collaborate. And then we brought in a contractor, Gil Bain, who their headquarters is based out of Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island, but they are, I think, of last year's 6th largest general contractor and developer in the United States, and they do quite a bit of work, a substantial amount, in the billions annually. And we brought them on because they are global. They're a global developer. They've seen different things. They can help with innovative solutions in construction and strong practices across the field. And another one that we brought in that's not listed here is Amoresco. And we are working with them to find out, they are a MEP, or mechanical, electrical and plumbing developer, and they focus on energy solutions and how to optimize real estate from a well-being perspective. In today's day and age, with COVID and everything that we're struggling with air intake and water and other energy sources, this is a great way for us to implement a well-being built building, which is very important and can actually, if done in certain ways, can reduce costs of the building, but more or less from an operational standpoint, that can save on the life cycle asset. What we're trying to solve as the Citadel through the city and through partnership with the city and its stakeholders are the following. A lot of these things were discussed and described into the RFP, but we're trying to create more daytime activation through innovation and through people that come in to work every day and stay there and hopefully eat down there and want to gather afterwards and want to bring their family and create this identity through community and innovation that creates a destination where people want to call this their home. And we also have some issues that are now coming to light on this end of town, where we have MSU FCU that's proposing to build. We have Park District that's construction is being completed, and we have the Graduate Hotel, as well as now the Citadel, all bringing in people. And in East Lansing, at least today and for the foreseeable future, people equals cars, because it still gets cold, and all of us still like to park outside the coffee shop to get our coffee. So we will be bringing more cars into this side of town. People are going to want to park near work, especially during the winter times. So there becomes this parking need that we're going to have to address, and with collaboration and ideas and work within the city, we are very confident we can solve that. We also have infrastructure, or not just physical infrastructure, but social infrastructure. So gathering spaces, programming spaces, water and sewer, roadways, safety, security. What is this going to look like? And another big reason to have this meeting today is to discuss from the people who come down and visit, who work down there, who live down there, what do you guys want to see? You know, what's going to make this feel more homey? What's going to make you want to tell your family, I want to go downtown East Lansing. I want to visit downtown. I want to eat downtown, and I want to tell people about downtown. And our initiative through this building, through this idea sharing ecosystem, is to develop an intricate, self-sustainable ecosystem or network of economic relationships that enable a variety of people and settings to encourage innovation. Essentially, how do we create a safe atmosphere where people feel encouraged to bring their ideas and feel encouraged to want to call East Lansing their home and not Denver or Silicon Valley or San Diego, or, I mean, we can't compete with their weather, but we have a fantastic place to live. We have a fantastic place to call home and raise a family. These talented individuals that are growing up here and leaving don't have to. We just need to start providing the resources for them to stay and reasons for it. So you can see here my six or our six kind of main things that we try to focus on when we speak with our architects about what they see or what we see as importance of a building that we would want to go to, that is also seen in innovation districts globally. So these six things are widely renowned to help provide a stage for innovation districts or research and development facilities or places that people want to work, that want to call home, that want to share their ideas. And a big one here, as you can see, is the unification. How do we feel unified? How do we feel as a group more together? So here is what we're talking about. We have these properties here, and you know, as a city, we're starting to see some changes. We're starting to see some development here, and we're starting to see some development here and potentially here. The city has changed Albert to align more over here, and we're starting to include new infrastructure to help provide for these buildings and these future developments, as well as upgrade or provide to the local neighborhoods. But you see, there's a lot of other stuff here that we need to talk about. How do we program this efficiently? How do we master develop this area? How do we provide a stage that people want to see? And that's why I'm here. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about this. I'm not looking to do a one and done. I'm not looking to come in here and say, these are all the things that you want. This is what I'm going to provide, and then switch to something like a housing. This is not a development at all costs scenario. River Caddis, I will be building a commercial building with office and or a little bit of retail, or we are not building something. It's very important to us. We are not switching our plans on this. And back to what I said in the beginning, this is conceptual. This is to bring out the light or the essence of technology. Photovoltaic glass as an option to help store energy, using efficient and sleek looking materials that on the first floor are backed away from the building to create public gathering space, to create a place where people can walk, talk, feel comfortable walking. It's lit up at night, so it's safe. But it also provides areas like this corner inside that has muralists, or it has public, or it has artwork. It has things to create identity it's different, it's new, it's exciting. It has street art, it has areas for people to walk around. Here's another activated area that we would like to implement as public art into activating this alleyway that doesn't have to be an alley. It can be an alley, but it doesn't have to be an alley with just trash cans. It can be something that people talk about. It can be something that people take a picture with their friends and send it to other people. It creates its own initiative, its own identity. And it doesn't have to be just the alley. And we want to make it safe, but we want to make people talk about it. And we've already been in discussions with muralists across the United States that just love these opportunities. And you can also see the honeycomb being implemented in the translucent glass here, street art, obviously all conceptual, but our goal is to implement as much as we can. Here's a little bit closer up so you can see that the building is set back, gives room for public programming. You see a large area up here, and I'll get to a little bit of a fly through here in a second. Here is a aerial view. The height currently is set at the same height as the MSU-FCU, which is about between 108 and 112 feet tall, 8 stories. Currently, we are providing 257 stalls within the building at roughly 250,000 square feet of commercial, most of that being office. The parking deck square footage is roughly 114,000 square feet. And you can also see some solar panels up here. How do we increase efficiency and still keep the essence of an innovation district, even through construction? How do we optimize the building? And I did this for a reason. I wanted people, I wanted stakeholders, I wanted anybody seeing what we're doing here to know that there isn't a stone we're leaving unturned. There isn't a person I am not talking to that I won't talk to. I'm speaking the language of community, and I can't do this alone. We can't do it alone. We need stakeholders, we need ideas, we need commitments, we need a bunch of different things to make this thing work. But with collaboration, we can really change how this city can work. And it's super exciting. So here's a couple floor plans. Again, conceptual. My goal in the very beginning was to try to figure out why I would want to work here. What would make this another thing besides the people, besides the sharing of ideas, besides that cheers atmosphere where everybody knows your name and you're walking around sharing ideas, trying to be successful and meeting new people. And it's food. What brings us together more than food, right? What food do we not have? What type of industry could we bring in that would change or bring an amenity to not just the occupants, but the city, where we could all go and create a gathering space through a central kitchen with multiple different types of food offerings. And that group, there are multiple groups across the nation, but one of those groups is one of our soft commitments and is one group that we're talking to. So working with specific people at Michigan State and the hospitality is my dream and reach, that together we can show from the private side what's possible. You know, what things within a program space can we do as a community that includes food, that people from above want to be at. So that explains kind of this first floor here. This flexible collar is the second floor. And again, conceptual, that could be multiple different things. And then you see office going 3, 4, and 5, and 6, 7, and 8 here, where we have an internal atrium. And this is done to maximize the footprint of the building, but at the same time, bring natural light and provide a public gathering space for the occupants on floors 6, 7, and 8. So this video, hopefully you guys will be able to see it. Again, conceptual, but it gives you an idea of the length that we've been going to show that this is real. This is the atrium, floor 6, 7, and 8. The hexagon floor is the, at the time, open concept. Floor to ceiling glass. And then gives you a view at about 85 feet. So that is the end of what I have to present. I want to first off thank everyone for being here and providing me a stage to present this idea that we are so excited with. And for the rest of the time, what I would greatly appreciate is anyone with ideas, feedback, collaborative ideas, anything that you feel noteworthy that we could talk about as a community to help provide the best possible asset for East Lansing going further. I'm an open book, so I welcome any and all comments. So thank you again and look forward to hearing from everyone.
Thank you, John. I invite members of the project review team to offer your initial ideas or thoughts, or if you had questions for the developer. Mayor Byer, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. Mr. Markera, we didn't talk about this when we talked earlier. What do you think about the viability of office in the next 5 years? Let's say you get started on this and it's ready to go next spring. What do you think about people coming back to work and coming and getting in offices again?
Well, that's the crystal ball question, right? A lot of people are wondering that. And I think every business is different. So it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen. I think each larger business is going to have their own protocol and they're going to see. I mean, some businesses were completely against people working from home. And then they were forced to do it. And they were like, wow, this works well. And those groups were considering expanding at that point, and now they're not. And I think Kevin and I are also very concerned about that for this building. But what gave and gives me more hope or belief that this works is the conversation that I've had with the people that I've had soft commitments with since the very beginning. Every day we continue these conversations, it is more risk for us on a lot of different fronts. And as I said, we're only going to do this if it's office. And if we don't have any office tenants, we can't build the building. So as soon as those go away, we unfortunately will have to stop. But we don't believe that's the case from the conversations that we've had to date.
If I can answer that too, Mayor, if I can add to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Peter. If we don't have, there's some developments you can just build without having tenants. Student housing is one of them. Market rate in a good market is one of them. And what the bank and partners, investors rely upon are market studies that you can fill it. Office isn't like that unless you're downtown New York, downtown Chicago, downtown LA. So you have to have an office tenant. So when we did this in Midland, we had to get long-term leases from all the tenants to make this work. Because if they are only there for 10 years and leave, then we own this really expensive building in downtown Midland. And I was born and raised in Saginaw, love Midland, but I don't want to own a 230,000 square foot office building in downtown that's very expensive. And so they had to collaborate with us, with the city, and we all had to get together to say, are we going to do this? And so that's what we have to do here. We're looking for the collaboration and the time to try to make this work. Every day that we spend on this costs us not only time, but it costs us money. So if tomorrow John and I find out from our preliminary commitments that none of them can do it, we're going to call you immediately and say, we don't think we can do this unless we go some other direction office-wise, because we're not going to build housing. If you want to build housing here, we're going to withdraw and you can RFP it and do what you want, but we're probably not going to do it because
Good with that.
we don't want to do it. We've had opportunities to do other residential developments in downtown and we've turned them down. I think Mr. Meadows can attest that I've been pushing for office for a decade downtown or more because I really think we need it downtown. And so if we can collaborate and work on this, I mean, every day we get a little closer with what we want and what you guys want and what the community wants. That's a better drawing for us. Tomorrow we're having another meeting with one of the potential anchors and we're taking some other drawings to them saying, okay, let's keep the excitement going. We need a little bit more teeth in our agreement and we need to keep getting those teeth until pretty soon they're locked in. And so before we spend $1 million on drawings, which is what it's going to cost, we're going to have ironclad leases with these people because we have to have it. And we have to have it before you guys will agree to TIF, to economic incentives, to working with us. And we know that. And there's other projects we're working on that we'd rather spend the time if this isn't going to work. But the other projects we're working on aren't a collaboration like we're doing in our own hometown because we really believe in this office. And I was one of the ones that was a little bit recalcitrant with John, but the enthusiasm he's been getting from these groups, when I sit in these meetings after he's had 5 or 6 of them, and I sit in the 7th meeting, I can't believe the enthusiasm and what they want to do and what they're willing to do. And so we've had a little bit of this conversation before, but even though that office environment is changing, we're pushing them saying, okay, is it still 200,000 square feet or did it go up to 300 or is it down to 150 or what is it? And so we're having those conversations constantly.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there others that wish to make a comment or ask questions?
I'd just back up the mayor. I mean, that was the exact same concern I had is, you know, are there going to be tenants for this? It's a great looking space. Be a nice addition to downtown. And I like the fact that it's linked to the design of the MSU FCU building as well. But I did wonder about that. So appreciated the question and the response.
Thank you, Dr. Wilbur. Are there others that wish to make a comment or, yes, Terry?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. One is it said the purchase price for the land is $5.5 million, which is the balance owed on the debt. Do we know how that relates to fair market value of the property?
That's a great question, Terry. Tom Fehrenbach, can you speak to that?
Sure. We have not performed an appraisal on the property. but the expectation is that the amount owed is in excess of what the property's worth by a considerable amount.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise me. So really, they're putting more into the deal. The developer's putting more into the deal because they're paying above fair market value for the property as a whole project is combined, if that's the case, which it likely is. Yeah. And then the other question I had is, do you have a schedule somewhere for when all these things are supposed to start happening, and if it's going to be done in phases or timing of that?
Yes. So when we started this process, when we presented back in February 25th or submitted, obviously we had one way of thinking, and that has changed a little bit in terms of how everything's going. At this point, with where we are and working with the DDA and the city, our goals are evolving, right? So they're changing with the time and trying to get to the next step with the DDA into a purchase agreement for the land. Phasing would just depend on the type, I guess you could say, type of project, but this would be a single phased project, depending on what was included, right? We would work with our contractor on making this a safe transition in terms of staging, in terms of where people were walking, in terms of where our neighbors are and how they and their patrons are parking. But that is conversations that we are having constantly, that we will continue to have as the development goes through the process. One example is with People's Church, and who are also on this. We will continue to discuss with them pain points that they're having. We're consistently working with them, or trying to work with them, on how we can work together and be not just great neighbors, but how we can improve the landscape around. So in terms of scheduling, that is an evolutionary process that we are right now working through, and we should know more as we go on. And hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that doesn't answer my question, which was the same. So let's say you could work all these things out. How long would it take to actually build the building and get a certificate of occupancy?
So if we put all the chess pieces that we've been talking about on the board, and we do a couple, I hate to call them charrettes because it's overused, but we do a couple charrettes with DDA and city, where we go through the site plan and we together come up with a master plan for that area. You'll be getting a site plan as fast as Newman Smith can put one together. That could be as early as this fall. And if everything falls together, we might still have other pieces that are out there, but we can at least get a master site plan started in zoning and site planning and the brownfield and everything else. And we could start, I'd love to start in the spring. It might be later in the summer because it takes so many months to get these drawings. I mean, it takes us 8 weeks to get a normal building done. This one, because of the infrastructure and everything else, could take 12 weeks to get the drawings done before you can, and then get building permits and then break ground. So it could be summer, could even be fall. Normal building, once you break ground, of anything like this size, is at least 12 months, sometimes 14. The parking deck can get done in probably 8 months from beginning to end, but you're probably 12 to 14 for the building itself. The biggest thing that John referred to is the staging. There's going to be a staging issue for the credit union. There's going to be staging for us. If Convexity builds, there's going to be staging for them. You've got to redo your infrastructure down there, the sewer and the water, and in the Albert Road reconfiguration. We're used to doing that, and you have to get everybody in a room. And some of it's done just because of what has to be done utility-wise. Then you work around that. But for example, you can't take away significant parking away from the church. You can't negatively impact their daycare. You can't take away parking from others that are down there. and you need some circulation. And so you guys have already seen some of the big developments downtown and what that's done. I'm down there all the time on weekends and everything else, and it's tough to get around sometimes. So you've seen that. A lot of that's going to go away by the time, would be gone and done by the time we start. And so it would all be focused on this end, but timing wise, once we break ground, I bet you 14 months we're done.
Thank you. Additional questions? Dave?
Peter, I'd just like to compliment the developers for their vision. I've been one of these cheerleaders also that have been trying to bring office use into the downtown. It's, I think, vitally needed for our vibrancy and our future. So the fact that they went out and tried to come up with this vision and make it a success, I compliment them. I guess I do have a question a little bit having to do with parking. And I'd like to ask how they went ahead and came up with the number of parking spots within the building shell for their intended occupants.
John, do you mind if I field that?
Go for it.
So we were required to respond to the RFP corner to corner. And so we had to basically use the DDA properties, and we also tied up the property to the north to give us a little bit more room. We fit what we could in there parking wise. We believe, and I think I've told you this earlier, David, I think we're underparked. And I know there's not a parking requirement. You can't own your own parking deck and everything in the downtown. So we did what we could. We really wanted to show you a vision. Johnny really wanted to show you a vision of what he's been talking about and what he's been doing. And we wanted to see that. It's very doubtful we're going to be able to put a parking deck inside our deck, inside that building, because our preliminary estimates now from the contractor, architects, and engineers puts it at, plus $40 a square foot, triple net, which doesn't work. We know it's going to be higher than market, but it can't be more than twice. And so we're probably going to have to do a separate deck somewhere. And that's where we're talking to others, because we think we can solve other problems in that area with a separate deck, not just for us, but for others. And so our building will probably have either no parking in it, or we'll have 25 plus spaces only, and that will all depend on topography and what makes sense. Because sometimes, for example, that in the northeast corner on the alley, it might be unusable space because of no windows and everything else. And so that might be a good space for 25 spaces, just as an example, unless John uses it as his food court public space, DDA space. But we believe that we're going to be doing a separate deck primarily, and it's not going to be just for us, it's going to be for the credit union and others in downtown, including, I'd say, the church as well.
Thank you. Are there others that have comments or questions?
This is Douglas. I'd like to ask a couple questions.
Thank you, Doug.
I also have long been interested in office in the downtown, and so I'm supportive of trying to work that through. I'm interested in what sorts of office uses you are anticipating, and I mean in broad categories. I'm not trying to find out who the potential users are here, but one way of thinking about it is that it's sort of large offices or large numbers of offices for a single user, single organization. So they're just trying to bring like their staff together. Another type would be, co-working space, and yet another would be lots of smaller offices that, might accommodate a bunch of small businesses. Can you give some kind of picture of what kind of office use you are thinking we would see?
Yes. So the best way, and when I was first initially looking at this, asking myself, well, what does this area have? What is a burgeoning industry of East Lansing or Okemos or the surrounding areas? And as I'm sure you're well aware, we have a lot of talented companies in the area. We have a lot of industries that stem off of Michigan State University, like InsurTech, AgTech, Bio and MedTech. You've got the rare isotopes. You've got bunch of different companies that are creating new companies. You've got software, you've got this innovation field that Michigan State Foundation generates companies every year. They have their technology or their TIC, and that includes basically a host of different groups that help provide the education for someone with an idea or service to actually create a business out of it. And maybe this becomes a step up, a graduated area where part of this building becomes an area for a business to become a tenant and grow their business within. But if you look around there, was it Jackson National did the zone downtown, and it's done really well for them. And if you just look at InsurTech alone, how many companies do we have in the surrounding area that could also benefit from something like that? It would well cover 250,000 square feet. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity. It's just hard. It's having the conversation, and then it's taking a no or it's taking a maybe and making it ours. And whether I'm young and stubborn enough to take on that challenge is up for question, and I'm okay with that. But faith and gut feelings take you somewhere. Persistence and perseverance. I believe in this, and I believe in it because people like yourselves have told me we need it.
Doug, in specific answer, we have in the strongest two preliminary commitments. One is a large floor plate user with employees, and the other one is a medium floor plate. Medium floor plate is 25 to 50, and a large floor plate is 100 plus. I think that's kind of the guts of what you're asking too.
Thanks.
Did you have an additional question, Doug?
Not right now.
Okay. Are there others that wish to offer? Yes, Michael?
Yeah, Kevin, you were talking about the parking aspect of it, and I just wanted to be clear. I was kind of cutting in and out there for a second, but you're not anticipating that you're going to be able to park the entire office building within the parameters of the office building. You spoke about putting a deck elsewhere. Where do you anticipate putting that deck, and would that then create more office space within the actual development then, as opposed to what's in the drawings at the moment?
Anything additional to what we've proposed, we'll be working with the city to come up with viable options. If we're just to look at the development that has been, that's currently under construction, there's not enough parking. If we add MSU-FCU, right, there's not enough parking. So at what point, our goal is to get in the room with people like yourselves, the city, the DDA, everyone that we can, say, okay, what exactly is the need? And then we, River Caddis, are the solutions-based company that help solve those issues, while also not just provide parking, but provide the people who are going to activate the space, who are going to spend money downtown, who are going to share ideas and create more of a community down there. But to your point, it's hard to say the 257 spots won't hold it, but we don't, if we fill this building up with 250,000 square feet of office, you're right, we don't think that 250 spaces is enough for that.
So the potential tenants, Mike, especially to pay more than market rate, are going to want to make sure they have enough parking. So we're going to have to guarantee enough parking. The good thing about that is that creates opportunity for the city and the community to leverage that, not just for us, but for others. And if the credit union, for example, needs 200 spaces, that's 200 spaces of income every year. If we need 250 or 300 spaces, that's another 300 spaces of income every year. And that's business hours. And so nights and weekends are going to be open. And those, because of the ordinance, it has to be a public deck. They have to be public decks anyway. But as a patron of yours, I know you need parking. I want to keep going there. So we're going to put parking as close to you as we can.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Additional comments or questions?
Peter, Jim Kroom.
Yeah, Jim, please.
Could one of you talk about the composition of the entity that's going to be in the ownership position on this, who that will consist of, or what that's consisted of in other projects of yours?
Yeah, this is Kevin. Traditionally, and my partner, 50-50 partners, Bill Demmer, and Bill and I have self-financed all of our projects that you see on our website. We've kept probably 75 or 80% of all our projects we still own. I'd say 60% of them or plus, we've self-financed them completely with either with bank debt and our own equity. And then on another 35 or 40% of those, we brought in a partner because it made sense for us. One example is Boise. We brought a company in because they specialize in affordable housing throughout the country. They're one of the largest. We've been working on several affordable housing projects and found out that we don't want to specialize in that. So we brought them in to those affordable housing with them saying, well, we want to come into your market rate because we want to learn that market too. And they've been wonderful partners. But we have the option because of financially, we have the option of doing it all ourselves or bringing somebody in, which is a great flexibility to have. We typically do all the construction financing ourselves, and then we do the permanent financing later after we become stabilized. And we can provide details of that to it won't be public information, but we can provide details to that.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay.
Jim, any additional thoughts?
Maybe you could share some discussion about other similar projects you've done. I mean, you can talk about the housing projects, but this is different than a housing project. Can you speak to those types of projects you've done, and are they profitable?
Yes. The closest one is probably Midland, which is 224,000 square feet. I think it's 16 or 17,000 square feet of office. The rest of it is office and hospital. And we still own that. That was a $9.5 million TIF. We only used $4.5 million of it. And because we were able to competitively bid after we got the numbers, and it was a good market at the time. That one had, how many geopiers, Johnny? Do you remember?
1156.
So over 1,000 geopiers, because over there by the Tittabawassee River, it was really bad. But we still own that. We didn't get flooded, by the way, when the dams broke a couple of weeks ago. We still own that. We financed that ourselves. That's got long-term life insurance company on it, but we put in all the equity. We actually have a partner that's Gillespie Group is our 50% partner on that. I brought Pat in on the beginning on that one to help collaborate. The student housing projects that we've done are, and by the way, these are all north of 50 million. Almost everything is about that size or a little bigger. And we self-financed all those, all the student housing projects. Trowbridge was obviously a lot smaller. Lake Lansing and Coolidge was obviously a lot smaller. Things that we all did personally with partners equity. And then, brownfield and bank financing. I don't know if that answers your question, Jim.
Yeah, it does. So this will be one of your larger commercial projects.
Yes, it will be, depending on how and how it's phased.
And then when, if I can use the term, if you guys continue with exclusivity, when would this project be a go? And I'm thinking about it from the standpoint of the soft commitments you have and tenants. What will make this a hard go for you such that you would not pull out? And number one, and number two, how are the current economic and health situations affecting your decision making on this?
So that's a great question. So we have to figure out what site plan and what chess pieces are on the board. That allows us to do a comprehensive site plan with some preliminary renderings that not only the city and the DDA and the community is happy with, but that our stakeholders are happy with. I told you we have another update meeting tomorrow with one of them. And what we're trying to do is constantly gauge their interest. And it's been very high. I can't say COVID has made it higher, but as John said, we don't think it's made it worse yet. So, you know, they might, instead of doing 250,000 square feet, do 150. We don't know yet. And we're trying to find that out. We also believe that they're not only excited about themselves being there, they're excited about the community. They're community minded. They want to bring in others as well in their same position. Since day one, they've been committed with John, because of John's enthusiasm, to bring in others to be with them in this and share in this, the CAMs for a public space, or share in this innovation thing with others. And the credit union is one of those that would share in that. They've shown interest, a lot of interest in that. And so our go point, Jim, quite frankly, is when we have a signed lease. We are not going forward. Once we have a signed lease, we know it pro formas, because we won't draft the lease until we know it does. And so we have to get there slowly. We have to, you know, we have a letter of intent, and then we put more teeth in it as we go forward. And during that whole time that they're telling us it still looks good, let's keep going, the city, this DDA, the community keeps telling us this site plan looks better, it's gelling. Yeah, this parking deck looks good. We like this mixed use. This is how we're going to do it. So that's kind of gelling at the same time, different tracks, but simultaneously. And so by the time we get a signed lease, we should also know really well what the city, DDA, and everybody will approve. And at that point, when we know both of those things line up together, we're there. And nothing will stop us. Financially, we can't be stopped because we're able to do this ourselves. We might bring in an investor, we might not, but we don't need one. Again, we'll probably do the construction part ourselves. But once you have the tenant, Jim, and we have the economics agreed to and the master planning of this area with the city, that's go time for sure.
Okay. Do you anticipate needing how much time for exclusivity?
Well, I'm hoping that we can continue doing what we're doing. We eventually have to draft a purchase agreement with the DDA. And I got a feeling it's going to be for the entire price, because how do we negotiate something lower when we don't know how large this project is yet and you guys have a debt? So you're going to be holding us over a barrel at the higher price, which Mr. Fehrenbach can attest and has, that it's quite a lot higher than fair market value. But if we have this high-end amount of office and we're building a parking deck as well that's going to be income generating, there's money there to be had, and there's ways to making that work. And so we could agree on a price in a purchase agreement now and keep going through this process and keep spending time and money like we are. And then as we get the economics get more clear, we can renegotiate that and still make everybody whole. You know, it might be different pieces to make that whole, but we believe there's going to be a way to get there, because if you think about the taxable value of what we're building, it's very high. And so there's going to be a lot of upside. And I will be proud to be able to present a pro forma that works well for the city as well as for us. And so I think the purchase agreement, Jim, I'd like to start working on that. As soon as we get one more level of commitment from our prospective anchors, I would like to start drafting that purchase agreement. And I'm hoping that's in 30 days that we're drafting that. But I don't want to waste the city's time in legal expenses and ours if we don't have those one more layer of commitment, which I think we're close to. And as I've talked to some city representatives before, the more we're talking about putting these chess pieces on the board with parking decks and other properties that we're talking to, the better it is for us, because now we've got more to talk about, and those become more real, and our tenants get more excited. And for example, if we get a second anchor, because the first anchor said, man, I got another anchor that we've been talking to, and if you've got that space, we can make this whole thing, like the Evergreen walkability is I think awesome. It reminds us of downtown Boise, what they do on 8th Avenue. It's incredible what they did down there. And that would really be wonderful. We think we could get another anchor, and then we would be phasing this, because we'd have to find another spot for another office building, which is a good problem to have, isn't it, David? It's really a good problem to have, that we need another 100,000 square feet office somewhere. That's what we really hope and think can happen. All because of that guy right there, not because of me. And I'm pointing to Johnny, by the way.
Yeah, I love your optimism. So you mentioned the DDA debt and the purchase price of the DDA property, and did I hear you say it might not be full price, or you're anticipating a full price offer, even though what I heard you say was that that would not be the fair market value of the property, but you guys willing to pay it? What are your, were you moving around on paying the full amount of the DDA debt, or what's your thinking?
I think that we're all going to have to collaborate and work together on it. I don't think I can give you a purchase agreement for less than the price, because I don't know what we can pay yet. And so I think I have to make a full price offer, and we have to try to get through this. By the time we get to the economics, I have a very, very good CFO. And by the time we get to the economics and we can talk through it, I think there's going to be an avenue. It might still be full price. And it might be a combination of something we do with our TIF in MEDC, because I think there's going to be some public space that I think you're going to like what John's working on for our first floor, with a food court, kind of like a Brody thing, but that's also open for DDA art exhibits or whatever. I think there's going to be some really cool public space, and I think there's going to be some collaboration that we're going to be able to talk to. So I know that's a long-winded answer. We're going to start with the purchase price, Jim, and work on it from there. We're going to try to make it work as part of the whole thing. But if we can't, I think there's enough arrows in our quiver that we can tackle it and take care of it either immediately or over time. And that's our goal. We don't think you can end up with a debt. So somehow that's got to get paid. You got to have a plan for it.
All right, that clarifies. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments or questions of the developer? Jack Cahill? Jack, you're muted. Jack, you're muted. All right, there you go.
Okay. There's a lot to like about your vision for this area. One of the things I was wondering about was, right now we have the proposed apartments in front of you, and it would seem to me that it would be a great amenity to your building if you had a clear view of the park. I was wondering if there'd been any thought given to talking to Convexity about maybe taking over that property as part of this project. Maybe you referenced that earlier when you said you were talking about other properties and that. But it would also open up a possibility of realigning the roads there that might actually give you more room where you are, that type of thing. And related to that, I wonder if there's been any thought given to somewhere in the building having a terraced or balcony area that would be open, where people could sit and look out over the park.
Mayor, you had your hand up. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah. So, Mr. Cahill, the problem with the convexity idea, and I'm not saying it can't be solved, but right now, under our current ordinance, convexity has to build some kind of housing there to meet their 25% requirement, or it has to become a park. Now, I'm not saying that can't be worked around, but that's another issue that Caddis would have to deal with.
Okay. Well, I knew there was that housing requirement, but that's changeable, obviously, if circumstances dictated. It just seems it would be a much nicer atmosphere for what would be a major building if if you were able to look out on a green space rather than looking at an apartment building right across the street.
We don't disagree. We're, you know, we're working with any and all stakeholders to see what's possible. I think Kevin mentioned that we're kind of turning the stones to see what is available, but this takes a collaborative event and it's evolutionary, and we're walking through that process. And if it's possible, we'll definitely try. As to your comment about a terrace, we, you know, in numerous conversations I've had with other people as well, of rooftop and other conceptual design features of a building that could overlook the park, or it could be a public gathering space for people that's above ground level. The only issue is money, right? If we're able to put that and instill that into our design, gosh, I mean, I don't think anybody can ever disagree with you how cool that would be. But we just need to make it work, and it'll be a little bit of programming of how the building is ran and how people get up there and what it's for and what the tenant mix is and how those people are moving throughout the building for safety's sake and for all these other different reasons. But I shouldn't say we, I wholeheartedly agree with you how cool that would be to have a terrace overlooking the park. And if we can, we will.
Thank you, John. Jack, any additional follow-up questions?
I might just say that to me, the vision that the DDA had to go out and pay 3 times the real market value for this property is coming to fruition with this office use proposed development for this site. And it's comforting to see that gamble is working out. I'm confident that over time, with the players and communities supporting it, the problems of parking, the problems of access to different businesses around this area can get worked out in time. So I'm supportive if I can.
Thank you, David. Additional comments or questions of the developer?
Hi, it's Carissa. I had a couple questions, if that's okay.
Yes, Carissa.
I am pretty much coming at this from a neighborhood perspective. I don't have a background in building or development or know a whole lot about it, but I do live in the neighborhood north of this, and I know we don't have an actual site plan, but just looking from where the layout of the buildings is, I had a couple questions. Specifically, how do you anticipate designating the traffic for the construction and then afterward for the employees? My first question.
So for once we establish that we have a site plan that has been agreed upon and we are moving forward with construction, we will go through a very tough process with our general contractor to make sure that the flow of traffic is safe. There's places that the city agrees where the contractors are parking, and it'll be just like the building and this meeting ourselves, it'll be a collaboration of how we're going to do that, because the building would need to get built, but it has to be built safely, and we have to have people parking in the right spots. And the people that we brought on are used to building downtown Chicago, downtown New York, downtown LA, and they're used to finding ways to get their employees and their contractors working downtown safely, and to hopefully not further disrupt the businesses around too bad. But as we all know, construction is construction and it's tough, but we will make sure that it's safe and everybody knows what we're doing.
Yeah, it's just funny that everyone keeps calling it downtown when really, as far as my knowledge goes, there really hasn't been any retail in this particular block aside from Evergreen Cycle. So it certainly will be a new thing for our neighborhood to we're used to the construction. We get the construction. I'm actually more concerned about how your employees are going to get back and forth, especially if they're not able to park on site. Are you going to be offering any type of shuttle service, a commuter lot, anything like that?
Oh, employees for the office. Excuse me. I took that during the construction process. My mistake. So
no, I asked about both. So
okay. Well, again, that will also happen with the city. To build this building, parking is part of it. Where people are going to park, where they're going to go, and how they're going to get to work. And it's going to be very hard for me personally and for Kevin personally to get a company to agree to put their flag downtown and not have parking. So it's going to be on the front of our minds in this development process, and we will be working with not just within our property, but wherever we can with the city to provide adequate parking for people to come to work.
okay. Yeah, I think a lot of my questions probably will be clarified further along in the process. But the other question I had was this alley with the murals. Are you anticipating that being open to traffic, or would that be strictly a pedestrian alley?
Well, it is, as far as I understand, that alleyway will have to be open to traffic, at least as it stands today. I'm not planning on closing it, but I'm planning on activating it from a sense that it doesn't have to stay an alley that's dark. It can be something that's a little bit more inviting, that drums up excitement, and something as a little bit of color to the walls, to have freedom of expression, can really brighten up somebody's day and bring other people in to look at it. So
I was also a little curious about the height difference from that, how the land is currently. Like, are you going to have, I don't know, like, is it going to be stepped up in some way, or how are you going to deal with that, with where the current alley is versus where Evergreen Street is?
The elevation, from what I believe, from north to south, I can't, Scott house is on, but it's higher to the north than it is to the south.
And higher to the east as well.
Yes, so we will be working with DPW and the city on how that looks, but we will design a building that fits well in that area, and is programmed well for people to visit and work.
Great, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. John, I have a follow-up question. You talked a little bit about, and I don't want you to necessarily have to divulge potential commitments, but the idea of some incubator space and working with, groups like the MSU School of Hospitality. Have you received any other overtures from the university of how their plans could be further accomplished with whatever may happen to be built in stone's throw to the primary entrance to the university?
I've been talking to some people from, multiple people over the past year and a half at MSU to try to form a strategic partnership, or just a partnership or a collaboration. I've never not had interest. I think that everybody believes that it's a good idea. I think now, from today, in the past year and a half is probably the worst time to ask for it. But I definitely think that there's interest, and timing is going to be the biggest key. So when I talk about hospitality, that's one way that we can introduce in a baby step process, I guess you could say, where the hospitality industry or section of MSU can provide human capital and people to come in that work in this field, and we can help MSU with case studies of food halls and what a central kitchen does to a downtown area, not just from a micro, but from a macro level. But there's a lot of different things that we can do that can really tell a story about how a community works together. But I think we all know that the more collaboration we have, the more inclusion we have with more groups, the more distinct and the more unique this project could be. It's just hard. It's hard in this day and age with everything so uncertain.
Thank you. I clearly think you're fulfilling a long undeveloped need with regard to office. I like the appearance of the building. I like the utilization of the alley. This conversation is really what is within the realm of possibility. So I appreciate your courage to step out and speak to as many stakeholders as you have and generate a lot of enthusiasm for what we can become. Are there other questions for the developer?
I wouldn't have oh, sorry, Peter. I don't know where I'm supposed to raise my hand, so sorry.
And I'm switching back and forth between my tablet screens, so I don't know who was trying to speak.
I was going to make a comment. It's Kathy.
Oh, yeah,
but
yes, Kathy.
only if I don't want to interrupt anybody else. I did want to respond to what John said. I think it's fair to say the university campus is very interested in seeing downtown have more office kinds of space, retail, et cetera. We think that enhances the entire community, but it also provides other opportunities for our students in lots of ways. Are there internship opportunities? Are there externship opportunities? Is there more potential collaboration between whoever determines that they will house themselves in that building and folks on campus? Proximity helps. So we're very keen on that, very supportive. I think it's also fair to say that we always have concerns about parking because we know we're already in some trouble with the city of East Lansing because of how students especially park everywhere when it's a community and it's a city full of neighborhoods that want to have their neighborhoods protected from that. So we do have concerns about parking, but who doesn't? But the idea of bringing this kind of a building to downtown East Lansing, I think, is something that is well thought of. And John's point is right on. Nobody has had much thought for the past 2 years, a little bit longer than that, to think about much else than what we're dealing with on campus at various times with various issues. So it's not to show lack of or represent lack of interest. It has just kind of been our reality as of late.
Thank you, Dr. Wilbur. I think Michael Kruger had a question.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess this has a little less to do with the development, but more about, I guess, upcoming public meetings and public perception of things having to do with, I guess, past partnerships with Scott Chappelle, that sort of thing. I just wanted to know and I guess make sure you guys are prepared, I'm sure you are, to deal with any of that type of questioning and or if it's actually a concern of yours at all.
No, not for me. I haven't talked to that guy in 12 and a half years. And I lived through it. For some reason, it made me stronger and got me to the point I'm at today. So I'd go through it again to get where I'm at today with my faith and family. So wish that
awesome.
person the best, but glad he's out of my life and can't hurt other people.
Good. That's awesome. Okay.
Any other thoughts or comments? This is the time to share your opinions with what has been proposed by the developer. We will have at some point a subsequent meeting, but I'd like to have everyone have an opportunity to express their opinions at the present time if you're so inclined.
Peter, Jim Kroom, I just have a quick question.
Yes, Jim.
Who does Caddis anticipate serving as their legal counsel? What type of firm would it be?
Jim, full disclosure, Jim and I were partners at Foster Swift many years ago. I left over 20 years ago. And Jim, I think you left before or after that. I can't remember now, but we use Honigman. I have a gentleman out of Kalamazoo at Honigman, the Honigman law firm, which is one of the largest or the largest in the state. He travels throughout the country for us. We obviously hire local counsel because of the local laws, but Steve Rittman at Honigman does all our real estate. He specializes in this type of stuff and these kind of agreements.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Dr. Monroe.
Hi. So I guess I'm only commenting that we are very impressed with the design and scope of the project. Particularly happy with the attention to walkability and making sure that it's not, just a cement grid that drops onto a sidewalk. We'd very much like to be a good partner in this with River Caddis and are really impressed with, not just the attention to what we're trying to do here in this part of East Lansing, but finally to see people take seriously the need for there to be more parking west of Abbott. So, so everyone who's part of our, Buildings and Grounds Development Committee has been really pleased and enthusiastic, and we're looking forward to, seeing what we can come up with in the future. So way to go. I don't have any fancy questions, maybe later.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
I have a comment. Terry?
Yes.
Oh,
Hi,
I just wanted to kind of echo what a lot of people have said, that I think the proposal is, it's very well visioned and thought out. I mean, down to the very minute details that end up making these projects work or not. And although I haven't looked at any market information on office occupancy in the East Lansing area, I can tell you that kind of office space just, doesn't exist there now. That I see right now close to the downtown. But in Lansing, there's strong demand for office space. We are redoing the Senate building, the Farnham building right now, and it's over 0.5% leased up before we even started, doing the renovations. And the demand is coming from outside the area too, not just in the area. We have a company moving from Grand Rapids, another company looking from up north a little bit, so Mount Pleasant area. So there's, as I see, very strong demand. I don't know if it's reflected in current studies or not, but what we see every day is very strong demand for office space and for nice office space. A lot of the office space is pretty aged in the area.
Thank you, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments? I don't see anyone else offering a statement or a comment at this time. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for giving up your very busy time and your schedules to allow for this meeting. I thank the developer for offering their perspective. We will look at reconvening this group at a later date. So you will receive a message or notice from staff. And seeing if there's no other comments, I will offer a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second, Dr. Wilbur. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Peter.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Really